We're really just running out of ideas to start episodes, aren't we? What if I lick the coin? Money's dirty. Is that funny? I have more self-respect than that, you fool. Really, I don't, but... What am I saying? Let's just start the episode. Baka, ooh, hey, Manga Tuesday. Welcome back to Manga Tuesday, episode 137. You know me as the DRC. And today we are finally reviewing Koroshiya 1, more commonly known in English as Ichi the Killer, because of the movie adaptation of this manga that was titled Ichi the Killer. And as someone that has watched through an entire video on YouTube that explains the entire plot synopsis of the movie version, I can confidently tell you the movie version sucks, at least in comparison to the manga. But we're not going to talk about the movie today, because today we're reviewing the Ichi the Killer manga. And I know what some of you are thinking, whoa, Darcy, I did not realise Ichi the Killer had a physical English release. Is that official? Or is that some Malaysian Indian bootleg? And to that I say, oh, you silly billies, this is just a drawing, you fucking retard. So believe it or not, George isn't at home. Please leave a message at the beep. But also, believe it or not, George isn't at home. But believe it or not, as much as I preach how much I hate reading things online, and I vowed to never do it, in this case, I had to do it because there is no physical English release of Ichi the Killer, so I read it online, 10 volumes, and usually that would be a daunting, excruciating task to get through, staring at a screen, reading that long. But actually, it was a breeze. The story is very quickly paced. It really just flies through, and the end of the chapters, a lot of time with mangas, you know, there's a big cliffhanger ending. It all builds up to some big whoa moment at the end of the chapter, but then the next chapter starts and it brings things all the way back down again. It reestablishes some stuff. But with Ichi the Killer, it just flows seamlessly. In fact, it flowed so seamlessly sometimes I didn't even realise a chapter had ended and the next one had begun. I thought it was like an error on the site, but it just like whew. As much as I love a big epic Naoki Urasawa cliffhanger at the end of a chapter that gets you like, ooh, I gotta see what happens next, I quite enjoyed the pacing of how things just flowed smoothly along. It was just like one long continuous story with no breaks. But if you know nothing of Ichi the Killer, I should preface it. It is extremely violent. It has a lot of gory depictions of torture and a lot of extremely explicit sexual violence in particular. And if that type of thing, just imagining the thought of reading it makes you squeamish, then this will definitely not be the manga for you. But I know there's some real sickos, some real sick people out there that would watch things like gore in their free time for their own personal morbid curiosity or whatnot. So if you're one of those type of peoples, if you're one of the peoples that would watch a objectionably kind of shit horror movie just because it has some tantalizing, interesting violence or torturous or graphic displays of gore or whatever nonsense, but the movie's shit, but you just watch it anyway because you're intrigued, then this is definitely the manga for you. But I think there's actually a little bit more going on here. There's also underneath a compelling story and very compelling characters. Now, if you're the type to be repulsed at gory violence, but you're thinking, hey, it's got a compelling story, great characters, okay, maybe I can push through the violence and experience this great story, I'm going to stop you right there. First of all, the story's not that great. But even then, the entire story, every plot device is all... It all revolves around very violent things. And so there's no just pushing through to see the great story. That is the story. It's the whole thing, so just slow your roll, buddy. This just ain't the story for you, I'm afraid. Focuses on these Yakuza gangs. One gang in particular whose leader is killed at the start, and now his underlings seek vengeance. And the person that killed him was, you guessed it, Ichi, the killer. He killed the guy, and so they're sort of searching for this Ichi, but Ichi is this pretty young kid. I don't know how old he is. He's not a kid. He's above 18, but he's a young and baby face, and he's fucked in the head for sure. And he's being manipulated by other people that are sort of using him as a pawn to take out these Yakuza bosses. He's a mentally disturbed sadist. He will cry as he kills people because he's picturing his past traumas, which are all definitely real and none of which could be fabricated. These past traumas, and he pictures these past bullies or whatever into these people and cries as he murders them, all while having an erection, and then he'll jerk off at the crime scene. He's kind of a weak guy. He's not very good. Like, he can't even throw a punch. He's a bit incompetent, but where he is competent is with his feet. He's very competent kicker, and he has these special weapons. He has blades that are on the back of his shoe. Yeah, there just happened to be a shoe there. I didn't even plan that. Whoa. I'm a genius. Sorry, I'm just getting a call. No, I don't want your telemarketing call. Hang up. Anyway, he has blades on the back of his shoes that I think he can retract, and he'll slice people up with them and brutally kill them in a glorious display of blood splattering everywhere. Anyways, one of the people in I guess, the gang, in the squad, one of the boys, who was an underling of the one that was killed at the start of the story, is Kakihara, who is, I guess, the other main character of the story. He's actually the one that's on the movie poster and a lot of the advertising of the Ichi the Killer movie. He's got scars down his face, and he is the ultimate masochist. He enjoys pain being inflicted on him. He'll also use his masochistic knowledge throughout to help torture people. You know, he knows how much the human body can handle without dying, but he seems to also take delight in dishing out these tortures to extract information from people. But he is a self-described masochist, like me. But so that's sort of the crux of the whole manga. It's a bit of a cat and mouse game, kind of, between Ichi, the ultimate sadist, and Kakihara, the ultimate maso, as they are on this inevitable collision course, and the whole manga is sort of leading up to them eventually crossing paths, and that'll be the big climax. What will happen? You'd have to read it to find out. But if you do read it, that's one thing, because there's no official English release. The translations can be a little dodgy occasionally in parts. Generally, it's not too big of a deal. Like, I think it's pretty easy to read between the lines and figure out exactly what's supposed to be being said. I wouldn't let that stop you from reading it if you're interested. That being said, the author of this, whose name I forgot, I probably should have looked that up before the review. That would be like something to note down, would probably be a good idea. But his other more well-known popular manga, Homunculus, just recently got an English release. I think the first omnibus comes out in a couple of months. So if that sells well, maybe one day Ichi will get an official release. Although it is very graphically violent, especially sexually violent, just very cruel violence. So I don't know if that'll affect it getting translated or not, you know. We can be killing people, and it doesn't matter, for who fucking cares. Super ultra violence, just killing people and treating human life like it's nothing. Who cares? But all of a sudden, someone does it, and then they use the blood at the crime scene to jerk off and leave their cum at the scene of the crime. And all of a sudden, it's a whole different sort of ick. It's a different sort of vibe that makes you even more uncomfortable. So, that's a thing. Let me talk about Kakihara, because I think he is actually the most interesting character by far in the manga, he's the one that'll really stick with you. He has a Glasgow smile. Woody knows what I'm talking about. He's got the slits in his mouth, but he has these little rings that keep him intact. But partway through the manga, they get ripped out, and then for the rest of the manga, he just has them ripped out. So he just has this cartoonishly devilishly wide grin at all times. And he makes these phenomenal faces, phenomenal artwork throughout this, and these bizarre faces that he makes, his crazy eyes, the scars on his face, and this haunting smile. It gets ingrained in your brain. After I finished reading it for a few nights, I would see Kakiharu in my dreams, flashes of his face. It's beautiful. And I truly believe it is a compelling story in the way it's told. It really, you just want to keep reading it and find out, and just see what happens. That's what compelling means, you know. I didn't, But yeah, there's no real good guys in this story. Ichi, is obviously the protagonist, and Kakiharu is the antagonist, but they both commit acts of extreme violence on people. But a lot of the people they commit violence on are also bad guys, so to speak, other gang members and whatnot. So it's like bad people being tortured and killed by even worse people. And eventually those worst people will also be brutally killed by a crying, erect young'un. It might sound a bit like just a gore fest for freaks, but the story is interesting. It is, as I've said, it's compelling. And even more so, I think the characters are very well crafted. And those characters, they are, you guessed it, interesting. And also compelling. Now we need to get to some serious topics. Usually for Manga Tuesday, I will often take like the title or the theme of a manga or something and sort of apply it literally. In a way, as a big, it's funny. It's called comedy. You might not understand, but at Manga Tuesday, we're all about the laughs here. So, Ichi the Killer, how can I take this literally? You might have thought I've killed someone and they're locked in my closet in pieces. But you'd be a retard, because if you know your Manga Tuesday lore, you know that I am staunchly anti-serial killing. And I have never wavered on that fact. So no, I did not kill anyone. I have no intentions of killing anyone. So what else can we do here? Well, I haven't mentioned this, but... Well, I did mention Kakiharu as a masochist, but he also has a lot of piercings in his ears. Some on his face and like eyebrows. But he also has a lot of cock piercings that we see. So I thought, it could be in the... Maybe we could do something down there. But then I would have to buy cock jewellery. And that seemed a little much. So I ruled out getting a cock piercing. I thought that would be just too much hassle. But then I thought, hey, I'm uncircumcised. Maybe I could perform a home circumcision on my penis, and that would be kind of, there's a lot of body mutilation in Ichi the Killer. They will torture people by cutting their dicks, because that's clearly the most effective form of torture that would often be glossed over in other stories that have torture in them, but not in Ichi the Killer. So, a circumcision is kind of like, it's cutting around the penis. So I thought, let me circumcise myself. One of my favourite bands is called Bleeding Foreskin. So, and one of the former co-hosts of Manga Tuesday is a Jew. So I feel like it just made sense. So, I watched a few YouTube videos about, performing a home one and how to do it and the tools needed. And basically, long story short, I have done permanent irreversible damage to my penis, and it is in extreme pain at all times ever since I tried to perform the surgery. I took painkillers about an hour or so before filming just so I can make it through this. But it is quite concerning. Earlier today, I was playing some femdom lines, and I got mildly aroused, and it was excruciating. I'm kind of actually seriously a little bit concerned. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know what circumcision involves exactly. I just know it's cutting. Like, are you cutting things off, or are you just sort of refashioning it? So I've sort of mangled my penis, and it doesn't look pretty, and it hurts quite a significant amount. I managed to stem any and all bleeding. So we're not going to bleed out, but enough of all the fucking jokes. This was not a good idea. I thought, I really commit to things. That's one thing if you know about me. And I feel like, usually whenever I get sick or something, I just ignore it and hope that it goes away in a week or two. Like that time, 7 years ago, where my testicles were in a weird feeling of pain, like a week after I got kicked in the balls pretty hard, and I just ignored it and pretended and prayed it wasn't cancer and never dealt with it. And then eventually I just went away, or I got used to the pain, and I'm in that pain all the time now, but I just don't even notice it. That's usually what I do, but this time, hey, I think I should be going to the doctor, but then I feel like they're going to affirm my worst fears. So I think we'll just pretend it didn't happen. I haven't even tried to urinate since it's happened. And I'm really busting for a piss, and I don't know where it's going to come out of. That's the level of a situation we're dealing with here. Yeah. I don't really know. This is a plea for help. Wait, Ichi the killer. Couldn't I have just killed Nawal? Oh, I could have just killed Nawal again. Oh, I'm a fucking idiot. Oh my god. It's not even the fact that stings. And it's not even the fact that my dick is literally stinging. It's that it was my artistic integrity. That was such a missed opportunity. It just makes so much more sense. Ichi the killer to kill Nawal. That works better than a stupid botched circumcision. That stings in here. And in a couple of hours, when the painkillers wear off, it'll be back to stinging down there too. But I'm such an idiot. I'm such a hack. That's the hardest thing to accept. I'm a hack. Anyways, get back to the manga. I think I had a few more things I wanted to say. Oh, as I was reading the manga, particularly towards the end, like the last 6 volumes that I read in one day, because I'm epic. I was listening to a lot of unreleased, leaked Lady Gaga songs, like Panty Party and Dirty Ice Cream. A bunch of those songs are like ingrained in my brain. They were really just vibing with me as I was watching it. Reading it. Now, I haven't actually watched the movie, but I do know the ending is considerably different from the manga. And while I do think the ending of the movie is interesting in its own right, I think the manga is much better, and I would assume the manga is much better as a whole. I think also the manga is much more violent as a whole. I mean, for example, you don't get Kakihara with his mouth ripped open the entire movie, because that's just sort of logistically difficult to do. And someone's walking past staring at me, and my window is wide open, and they're walking a dog, and I can see them glaring in here. Don't you have some tact, lady? Don't you know I can see you staring in just as you can see me? You take a glance and then you just keep walking. You don't be giving me the entire time as you're walking past. What are you doing walking out? It's cold out. It looks like it's about to start raining. Why would you be walking now? Yeah, you better keep walking. What was I babbling about? I think I've lost the ideas I wanted to talk about. But I feel like I saw some people say the ending was anticlimactic in the manga, at least the final confrontation, but I disagree. Spoiler alert, mute the video while this text is on screen and don't unmute it till it goes away. But in the final confrontation of Kakihara and Ichi kicks Kakihara and it looks like he just misses him, but he actually takes his clothes off and perfectly splits Kakihara's cock in half, which was a pretty epic, climactic, cathartic moment. But it would have been more climactic had not just before that in the manga, someone else had their penis surgically split in half in a torture scene. But it would have been better if that didn't happen, I think. But Kakihara is sort of, throughout the whole manga, I'm just babbling now, it's not making sense. I've lost any semblance of anything. But Kakihara throughout the manga is sort of salivating at the idea of meeting Ichi, this guy who he thinks might be capable of killing him because he's at the ultimate form of masochism, to be murdered. Kind of in his sick mind, but he doesn't really want to be killed, especially when he's really faced with the reality. He's a real sicko, and Ichi is just mentally disturbed and is being manipulated by some old guy who does steroids. Is the ultimate form of sadism to take someone else's life against their will? And is the ultimate form of masochism to have your own life taken against your will? Maybe in the fucked up world of Ichi the Killer. I don't know. That sounded like a poignant thing to lead off into a thoughtful discussion, but I've forgotten. Anyway, do I really have anything else to say, or am I just gonna... Is it just gonna be a rambling mess of incoherent half-thoughts that really tell you nothing about the manga, like in a way that would be useful to know if you want to read it, or if you've already read it and you want to hear someone feels it's also not useful at all, it's too vague and just nonsensical. But I feel like there was more points I wanted to hit. I don't know, for a rating I'll give it a 7.87 out of 10. Let's just call it quits. If anything else pops into my head, I'll add it in post. Right here. Did I add anything? I don't know. Or maybe I'll add it back when it was relevant to what I was talking about at the time. Who even gives a fuck? I guess that pretty much sums things up, don't it? So, does it sum it up? Yes, it does. So thanks for watching, and as always, Marmot. Jesus, what episode number is it?